Yeah, if any of you have recycled a computer or TV in Vermont in the last 20 years, it probably showed up in Middlebury, and I hope I don't scare the bejesus out of you. But 15% of what we got is part of a very interesting story that I call the Underground Railroad. As I said, Middlebury, the plant, we've got 40 employees, started just myself on the truck. We collect about 6 million pounds a year. It's now one of the largest in the East Coast. We've got very high percentage of women, a lot of Special Olympics vets, and collect from Boston and Providence, as well as Vermont. We take apart 85%. This is about the 15% that gets reused. And that's the whole reason I got into the business. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Cameroon in the 1980s. And there was no post office, no bank, and no place to develop film. So I showed up back at home in Arkansas, where I'm from, with these 7 rules of film. And I did have some of the normal stuff. But one of the things I found out when I developed these 7 rules is, why did I take so many darn pictures of exotic-looking African poverty? You'd think I lived in a grass hut or something. And I started to notice in these photos, even my friends, Yaji and the kids were all doing it. Oh, take a picture of me, Mr. Robin, with carrying something on my head. And I realized we were doing the same thing that I saw happen in the Ozarks, in the Branson area, trying to validate the poverty, that we were actually there. And when I was a kid, I remember all my family complaining about the tourists from Chicago and the actors from Hollywood playing hillbillies. But there we were doing the same thing, going to our grandparents' photos to show that we were really from there. So back to the connection with why I was inspired to start this business. A lot of time to spend to think about how not to be a white savior Barbie, how not to just leave Peace Corps, forget all about these people that you've developed a relationship with. But if you're going to go back, you want to work with the smartest, the valedictorians, the best and brightest. And what I realized was those were the people that fix stuff, just like my grandfather taught me in the Ozarks. So I'm thinking, hey, that'll be a really cool connection. I can take the 15% that's still good and start to work with these guys. Suddenly the bad press starts, and this guy Jim Puckett, who I knew from college, who was at Greenpeace, made up this number. He pulled out of his underpants about 80% of the stuff that people like me export is being burned by children. And this picture that he claimed to represent it, this is a kid at a dump in the city of Accra. And he's got the same model TV my landlord had in the 1980s in Cameroon. Why didn't I take a picture of something ordinary like my landlord's TV? But instead I found that album cover that it was on. But it just got worse. Once that statistic was out there, photojournalists going to Africa, they're trying to validate, say, oh, I saw this. The top photos were actually an MTV video that was made. They went to the scrapyard in Ghana and paid the guys, some of whom I actually know, to set fire to the place. That led to the arrest of one of the most prominent TV repair guys, this guy Joe Benson in England. He was buying TVs from hotels. As they replaced them with flat screens, you can see the ones in the Greenpeace video are all the exact same make and model. There's no way you get that of an e-waste dump. But they say, aha, this is a photo of the stuff being sent to be burned. So what am I going to do? It's like this runaway train. And I decided just to start blogging. I'd never blogged before. I didn't know quite what to do, but I started just doing some research to show this is how many TV stations were in Africa in 1977, 250. Here's the number of people that got online in these countries that make $3,000 per person per year between 2000 and 2010. Not enough computers were sold to those countries for that many people to be online, brand new ones. This is the nonprofit's budget. It's coming from manufacturers and Big Shred. And as I started just slowly documenting this on my blog, I found that if I put the words thesis and research paper, that I started getting these hits from college students who started asking more questions. And so I start saying, hey, go take a look at this picture from this UN thing. And they find out that, oh, those chips are actually being sorted and reused and being remanufactured into brand new computers in China. I say, great, let's fly over there. And so I bring the largest recycler from the place where this Greenpeace guy lives, and said, look, I want you to out me if I'm not actually showing you what they're doing here. And I also brought my kids and started this this annual mecca going a few times a year to where the buyers were trying to buy this stuff. I found out that the CRT monitors last 25 years, Americans were replacing them after 4, and the original factories that made them were buying them back because they couldn't believe we were throwing them away with 21 years of life still on them. So I started publishing pictures of these huge factories, 1,500 employees, and the United Nations actually came and said, we saw your article on your blog and sent people to Middlebury, Vermont to ask me what's going on. Then I get a check in my mailbox in Middlebury for $5,000 from this women's collective in Mexico saying that they were reading on the blog and they wanted to hire me as a consultant to get them into this business because they were really attracted by the idea that this is what valedictorians do. So next thing you know, I've got partners in Lithuania. The Attorney General of Burkina Faso came and lived at my house with me for 6 months. My wife and kids had to take a year off in Europe. Well, we had people from Cameroon, from Indonesia, Egypt, all in our house, working and meeting our staff in Middlebury. And it became like too much. I did not have enough product to sell to all these people, but I thought that they were really cool. So I started trying to introduce them to other recyclers, to competitors, saying, look, why don't you sell to this guy in Egypt? He's smarter than a tree full of owls. And they said, but we're so afraid. We've heard about this place called Agbogblashi in Ghana, biggest e-waste dump in the world. And I'm like, oh, brother. So I fly over to Ghana because I know that the kids at the dump, it turns out there's only 25 people there. And all the stuff that they're collecting is with a wheelbarrow. And it's smaller than one of our cities here in Vermont. But I see the guys originally importing the stuff that they were scrapping, were importing it 25 years earlier. And so I started taking pictures of what they're doing. And with these guys here, the guy on the left, last summer I sent my oldest son to go apprentice for him for 7 weeks, just saying, you gotta see what is going on here. The tech sector in Africa are the best and brightest. They're the ones that are the most integrating women into their workforce. They're adding like $700 of value with just their knowledge of how to replace a 50-cent capacitor. And this is my passion, and now, thank goodness, universities have read about it. 2 books are being published about it this summer, and a documentary's coming out. Thanks very much.